We've just stepped inside a world of curiosities here at Telltale Games booth at E3 to find out a little bit more about Tales from the Borderlands. We really got to see the first 40 minutes of the game that sets the stage for this whole thing, really leaving us wanting more, as you sort of do with every episode, leaving us wanting more.
That's good news. That's good news.
First of all, the marriage between Borderlands and Telltale Games, not one that's super obvious from the outside, but how did it come to be, and what do you what is it about Borderlands that makes you feel that this is a property we want to explore in our special way?
Well, I mean, you know, we only want to work on properties that have amazing stories and characters in them. And so you look at The Walking Dead, which, you know, is a no-brainer. The Wolf Among Us, based on Bill Willingham's Fables, DC comic book. And also we've got Game of Thrones down the line. So all of those things are kind of, you know, they're easy no-brainers in a sense. Tales from Borderlands is a first-person shooter. And so a lot of people are like, well, it's a first-person shooter. And, you know, generally speaking, not with every first-person shooter, but generally speaking, a lot of them just don't have very deep stories or characters. That's not what they're about. But if you're a fan of Borderlands and you pay attention and you don't have friends in multiplayer who continue to do noisy things while you're trying to listen to people talking to you, then you'll know that there's a really, really good, powerful story there. And sometimes it's a really dark story as well. And so we knew that as fans of the actual game, so that made us want to work on it. And on top of that, you know, we just happened to be pretty good friends with a lot of the guys over there too. So it just made a lot of sense. We kind of tested the waters with getting Claptrap into Poker Night 2. And then it's like, well, let's do something else. And so Tales from the Borderlands came to be. And, you know, like I said, we knew that there was a lot of story there for us to use to grow into something that could be a Telltale game. But we really weren't prepared for the size of the universe that Gearbox has designed. And, you know, like, I've described this to a lot of people, and it always raises eyebrows, is that the Borderlands universe is as big as something like Star Wars before the expanded universe just got recently killed. And people, they're like, what, really? And it absolutely is. The ecology's there, the history's there. They've gone into an amazing amount of detail to create this world. And you've just not really seen it in the games that they've created. And frankly, you've had no need to, because the games that they've created, Borderlands and Borderlands 2, are so good at what they do. They're so good at the shoot and loot mechanic. They're so good at multiplayer. And so you're not really concerned with that. The story's there if you want it and for those that look, but it doesn't necessarily jump out at you. And that's the other thing that, you know, we're taking that now to another level with a Telltale game, which is focused on story and characters. You know, we're not trying to make a first-person shooter. That's not what we do. There's certainly action in our game, but it's definitely about the characters and the storylines.
Speaking of that, I think the narrative device that you're using here for this game is spectacular. Because it fits so well with what Borderlands is all about, as sort of your perspective, the different perspectives that you're playing out and how they play out. Can you talk us through a little bit how that came to be and what that device is?
Are you talking about two players? Yeah.
The fact that you're sort of retelling the story and...
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, so the other thing that's new about this game versus previous Telltale games is that you play as two different characters. And each of those characters is basically trying to get one particular thing that's a means to an end, which is a vault key. And they are both being questioned by, as the game starts, they're being questioned by this other mysterious character as to how things came to be where they are right now. And so Reese, one of our characters, starts telling his side of the story, but it's a big fish tale, so it gets a little bit exaggerated towards the end, all driven through player choice, by the way. And then when it gets to a certain point, Fiona, the other character, is like, no, wait a minute, that's not what happened. And then you as the player get to tell her side of the story, which could also be a big fish tale. So, you know, you're creating these crazy, crazy stories, explaining to the stranger, this mysterious stranger, how you got to this point. But the truth of the matter is, the stranger's kind of got a very good idea of what really did happen. And when people find out who that character is, I think Borderlands fans, their minds will be blown.
That's a teaser if there ever was one. So speaking of that, because of course your choices influences all your relationship with the characters throughout the game, throughout the episodes.
Right.
At least that's what I think it will be, typically.
Mm-hmm.
How do you influence the relationship between Reese and Fiona? Or is that just part of the device, or will players also influence that?
Player choice will totally, because, you know, you're choosing to do certain things as that character within their particular storyline. So then when you get to the other character storyline, the things that you have done will be taken into account, the things that you have done and said. So yeah, every single choice that you make in the game, and we're trying to evolve choice every time we make a new game series, right? So in this one, there's the stuff that you're used to if you're a fan of Telltale Games or if you've played anything we've done, and you'll know that choice comes through dialogue or action. But in Tales from the Borderlands, we're evolving some of the combat that you saw in The Wolf Among Us. And we're trying to make sure that it feels very much like Borderlands. If you saw the demo, you'll know that there's a loader bot that you can pull down from the Hyperion base, choose how to outfit that loader bot as far as weapons go. That affects actually how that combat scene will then play out. And then further to that, loot. This is Borderlands, right? So loot has to be an enormous part of the game, and it absolutely is, and it's part of our choice system. So when and what and how you choose to loot things will also have a chance to affect the game as well.
Very interesting that, and you sort of just teasing what the connections with the other Borderlands games going to be, but there's going to be some connection there.
Yeah, well, obviously there are story connections, but yeah, there are. So there's our game takes place after Borderlands 2. We will have links into the pre-sequel, although a rule of the Borderlands universe is there's no time travel, so that's not the sort of thing that we're talking about. But there will be links, and there certainly will be loot links between the games, and that's something that we'll be releasing more information on soon.
Another thing that struck me about it is, let me see here, trying to sort my mind here. Talking about the two characters, Reese, we got an introduction to him working at Hyperion and in a volatile area, time at Hyperion. Fiona, on the other hand, we didn't get to see that as much of her. What's her role in this?
Well, she's the other half of the story, right? I mean, the way that we're pitching this is there's two sides to every story, and so she's the other side of the story as to how things happened and after the fall of Handsome Jack. Like I said, they both have their kind of the thing that's driving them to do what they do. Reese is this Hyperion guy who wants to be the next Handsome Jack. Fiona is this con artist who needs to make this one final big scam on Pandora before she basically escapes, and so they both happen to be drawn together through a series of events, and again then tell each side of the story as you progress.
But one thing that struck me about it is obviously Borderlands has this sort of cartoony style, but you're taking a little bit of a different approach to it. It looks a little bit different, but it seems like these two styles, your style from Telltale Games and the one that Gearbox used in Borderlands 1 and 2, really marriage well together.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a similarity. I mean, we've got that kind of, cartoon illustrated, heavy keyline kind of look around our games. There's certainly a different, I mean, if you look at how it's evolved from Season 1 of The Walking Dead through into The Wolf Among Us, which is very much kind of that DC Comics, Buckingham style of artwork, and then you move into Tales from the Borderlands, and we absolutely do take inspiration from what they've done in the games. This is a part of that universe, and so it needs to look like that, and hopefully we've achieved that.
I certainly think you've achieved that, and one of those things about you're working on Walking Dead, but I do feel like you're sort of you're grounded in that humor, that sense of humor, and that's something that certainly comes through in this demo. There's a lot of fun characters, sidekicks, if you will, that will go along this adventure. Can you detail some of them and who they are? Well,
it's a nice change after 3 seasons of games that could potentially make people cry to do something that makes people laugh. And as you said, our company was grounded in humor. A lot of our previous games were very, very funny games, and so it's nice to do that again. The Borderlands universe, the thing that Gearbox has created, is a darkly funny place. So we're just basically riffing on that. Our writers are having an amazing time just creating these new funny set pieces, just funny lines. There are so many funny lines in just the demo that we did today that it's hard to keep up with them, but I hope that people find it funny, and I think they will.
Right. So what's the plan ahead with Tales from Borderlands? Are you sort of, do you have I mean, obviously you still have episodes to release for Wolf Among Us and Walking Dead Season 2, but when's the plan to sort of have the first episode hit?
We're looking for the first episode to hit later this summer. It's a 5-episode series, just like our others, coming to the same platforms. And then, as we roll out of Walking Dead, which we've got 2 more episodes left of, and the finale of Wolf, which is right around the corner, we'll then roll into the other thing that we have, which is Game of Thrones.
And any clue as to when you'll start talking about that more in detail?
Soon.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Listen, kiddos, trust Handsome Jack. You want every part of this insanity. Oh, God. So many people are gonna die.